Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today, Elizabeth Fleury. She's going to talk to us about life's Encore, and it's kind of like the title of our segment today. And but really, that's her company. Really, what we're going to talk about is Solo-Agers. So you're by yourself. You don't have other family members. What do you need to know? So, because we have a few of those in my practice we talked about earlier. So I know what it is. So do me a favor and tell our listeners what's a solo-ager.
Hi. Well, thank you for having me today, Kim. A solo-ager, most of us, if we do think of someone being a solo-ager, we're thinking of someone who's never been married, who has never had children. And yes, that is your main solo-ager. But we also, those of us who are married and maybe have not had children, may one day as well become a solo-ager if and when our spouse dies, if they precede us in death. So that is another example of a solo-ager.
So we try really hard in my practice to put some things in place to help that, so that, as far as planning, what can we do to plan to make that a little easier? And so, but what steps should you take, if you may become one of those solo-agers?
So what I tell people when we, start the conversation, I talk to them about, let's start with who are the most important people in your life, in your tribe, we'll say. Are they friends? Are they other family members, cousins, some type of relatives? And then thinking of those people, are they ones that you could see caring for you in the future and making decisions for you in the future? If you are married, it always defaults to your spouse. But if you don't have anyone else in your life, you still need to find your backup advocate. Who would that person be if your spouse precedes you in death? Who would that person be? That's really, friends, other family members. That's who you would think about for, looking at who would become your advocate for you once your spouse is gone, or if you've never had one.
So I think a lot of people don't think about it until they start planning. Sometimes they don't think about it, and sometimes they don't plan and don't think about it, which makes it even worse. And so,
Yes.
so how do you advise people to, how do they choose, who to be your advocate?
So I like them, I tell them you really should consider your relationship, right? Look at all the people around you, in your tribe, in your family, and could really have an open mind about what your real relationship is with them. And then think about aspects of who they are. Are they older than you? Are they younger than you? What kind of responsibilities do they already have in their life? Are they near you? Do they live in proximity of you? What is their health like, right? They may have health conditions, that existing health conditions, and could they be exacerbated as time goes on, or could that come in the way of them caring for you in the way that you might need them to? So those are kind of the big ones that you should look at first, because you don't want someone necessarily your same age who is struggling and alone as well, right? You want to make sure that they have resources and the availability and that relationship with you, to be open and honest with you as well, because you also don't want to say, hey, would you be my advocate? And they're like, oh yeah, sure, but not really go through, okay, well, here, this is what this will mean for you to take on this future responsibility for me.
I find that a lot of clients, when you're asking those questions, well, if your spouse can't make medical decisions for you, who's going to do it? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, so then we start down the path you talked about, any, extended family. No, but anybody, we're not really close to those. So what about your best friend? Well, they may not have one of those either, or if they do, they're like, man, I don't want to ask them to have to make those decisions, So how do you work on helping someone, build that team as you age so that they feel more comfortable having that conversation with somebody to kind of break the ice to say, hey, I really need you as part of my team, so that if something happens and here's what I would like for you to do, or would you do that for me? So how do you go about building that team?
Again, first, it's always starting with looking at who you have in your life, right? And are there people in your life that you could approach or you feel comfortable with? If so, that's where I would start. Now, if you don't have that person in your life, then I would send them to someone like you who could help them to find a trustee to come in and advocate for them in their best interest, because that's always another option. And sometimes I find people will be like, yeah, I have people in my life, but I don't want to either burden them or put that responsibility on them, or I just don't want to ask them. And then again, in that situation, I would send them to someone like you to get a trustee in place who could stand in for them, as well as that goes. And then, when you're building a team, once you think about that advocate who's going to speak for you, then I like to go towards like the care. All right. And are you going to stay in the area where you're at now? So, maybe you're in your 60s or 70s and you're like, hey, we're thinking about relocating. Well, then I would say, all right, well, then why don't you put that in play right now? Because it's not going to do you any good to put all this team in place and then 5 years down the road go, yeah, we're moving, and then you have to start that process all over again. So I always like to have people have that conversation of, are you happy in your community? Do you plan on staying in your community? Or are you, thinking of moving closer? Maybe your advocate is across the country and that's the person who you want to be with. Then I would say, okay, let's start that move. So then you build your care team there. Because part of your care team would be, you're someone like you, a lawyer, your financial and tax advisors. That's who you would want on your legal side. And then after that, your current medical situation. Are you healthy? Are you happy with your primary care doctor? Should you even possibly look at going to a specialist like a gerontologist to help you in your later years? And your medical, dental, vision team. These are all people that you should consider. And when building that team, I think it's imperative to have your advocate along with you on that journey, because they're going to be the one who is going to work with these people to advocate for you when it comes to your care and making decisions. So if you bring them into the fray of that right in the beginning, that makes it more helpful and easier in the long run as well.
So I know the answer that we give, our clients, but I love getting other perspectives. So why is it important to have that plan in place before something happens?
Yes, that is a big one. And what I tell my clients, it's all about choices and control. Everybody wants to make their own decisions, be responsible, and have control over their lives. The only way that you're going to be able to do that towards the end and as you go moving forward, as you age, is to plan for it ahead of time. Unfortunately, when you don't plan, something happens, and then it's like you're cruising along, you're at the top of the waterfall, and you're just floating along, and then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, I'm coming towards the edge, and then something happens and you go over the edge, and now you're falling over the edge of the waterfall, and everybody's scrambling to try to come and help and support you. But unfortunately, once you're already in that situation, then we're all in, putting out the fire and trying to, maybe you now need a new place to live. Okay, well, you haven't done any research for that. So now your advocate is trying to find something for you. And when it's an emergency situation, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to have the time to go take the tours to see what community is going to fit your personality and lifestyle the best. You're going to have to take whatever is available at that point. So there, like I said, you're losing your choices and the control over making those choices to decide, yes, I want to do this. Someone else is going to make them for you. And if you and your advocate have not planned for that, maybe at that point, unfortunately, you haven't even gotten your advocate or talked to someone. So there again, it's going to be, someone's going to have to step up. It may not be the person that you would have liked to have been chosen to, but we just need to go with whoever is there to step up. Or if there isn't anyone else, then your doctor or a lawyer or a social worker is going to be the one who is going to have to step in for you and make those choices for you. So that's why planning is imperative if you want to have that level of control and choice in how things move forward as you age.
Yep. And you're preaching to the choir, girl. And,
Right? I know. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
you plan, it's like you put the plans in place so that you have options. When you
Yes.
don't plan, you have usually one option, so and I like clients to be able to, if they're thinking about moving out of the house and things like that, I like them to do the tours. Better yet, I tell them to go have lunch at the facility, because some of the food is not as good as some of the others, and if you got to live there, you got to eat whatever they fix. So having options is always better than pre-planning is always better. And so
Yes. And I get a lot of clients as well who say, nope, I'm staying in my home and this is what I'm doing. And I say, okay, that's great. But, let's be realistic. It's not just about putting grab bars in your shower. It's a lot more than that. So what I always do is I show them both sides of it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at assess your home situation, proximity to your care and shopping. Are you willing to have people come in and help you? What type of changes need to come in your home? On the flip side, let's also go do these tours of these communities where you could be a future resident. So then we have a really good idea and they can see both sides of it. A lot of times people will just say, $4,000 a month. Oh my gosh, I can't afford that. But then they really haven't had the opportunity to look at the full picture of what it costs for them to stay in their home. The outside, the inside, the food, the utilities, the taxes. And if they look at that full picture, they may see, oh, well, maybe $4,000 isn't that much. I'm spending $5,000 staying in my own home. And when it comes to solo aging as well, a big part of that that can be a problem is loneliness, right? And that is one of the big things that if you're going to stay at home and live in place, then you need to, as part of your plan, what is going to be your social interaction moving forward? Because we're social beings and we need to be around other people. And so how can we ensure that even with you living alone, you have options to go places or people coming to you and making that easy?
So most definitely, excellent advice. And so I can't appreciate so much about having you on the show and really just kind of, helping clients really kind of stop and think, how is our situation and what should we do? So if somebody wants to find you, how do they do that?
Well, they can email me, elizabeth@lifesencore.com, or they can visit my website, elizabeth@lifesencore.com. And I'm on social media. My name is Elizabeth Magallon Fleury, and you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on Instagram. I'm Life's Encore Planning.
And the phone number?
408-295-2928.
Perfect. Thanks so much for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure, Elizabeth, and you have a great day.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate your time and having me on the show today.
All right. Thanks a bunch, Ann. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.